Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from, and a warm welcome to all. You have joined the third technical session for Module 8, Audiences and Analytics, which will cover using analytics to understand audiences and optimize your efforts. This module is brought to you by the Digital Empowerment Project for Small Museums, a nationwide initiative organized by the 6 U.S. regional museum associations and dedicated to providing free, self-paced training resources for small museums. This inaugural series of online trainings and resource toolkits focused on digital media and technology topics is made possible by funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. My name is Zinnia Willits, and I am the Executive Director of the Southeastern Museums Conference. My pronouns are she, her. I am a light-skinned white female with shoulder-length reddish-brown hair. I'm wearing black-rimmed glasses that are often referred to as cat eye style. And today, I'm wearing a navy blue blouse with 3/4 length sleeves, and I'm sitting in front of a backdrop of my home office, which consists of a desk and a few computers behind me. As the host for today's session, I would like to convey a few things to our attendees before we begin the program. In this era of virtual meetings, when digital spaces may substitute our physical sense of place, it is important to reflect on the land we each occupy and honor the indigenous people who have called it home. Today, I am speaking to you from Charleston, South Carolina, the historical homelands of the Natchez Cusco peoples. Wherever we are, let us acknowledge all indigenous nations as living communities, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. We, the Digital Empowerment Project team, recognize that our organizations and those of our members were founded within a colonizing society that perpetuated the exclusions and erasures of many Native peoples throughout the United States and beyond. We ask you to reflect on the place where you reside and work, and respect the diversity of cultures and experiences that form the richness of our world and our profession. Thank you. And now for just a few housekeeping notes before we introduce today's presenter and get started. First, the best place to view this session in real time is on the Museum Learning Hub website under the Watch Live tab at museum-hub.org. Here you will be able to see all the captions, chat, and others' questions. I would also like to acknowledge today's American Sign Language interpreter, who will be on the left side of your screen, and let you know that captioning for today's program will be embedded in a box just below the YouTube player on our website, with controls to adjust your experience. The best way to continuously refine our programs is to listen to our attendees, and we ask that you share your candid feedback with us. Following today's program, you will be sent a link to a satisfaction survey. Sharing your experience through this survey will only take a few minutes and will greatly improve our work. We encourage you to post questions to our presenter, which will be addressed at the end of the program after the presentation. Please type your questions in the chat. A digital empowerment team member will be gathering them. We will address as many questions as time allows. However, we may not be able to address all questions, and other questions may arise after reflecting on a program. For this reason, we have set up an online community forum for raising questions, posting answers, and connecting with your fellow attendees in between programs. If you are looking for help in between programs, please visit this forum, create a login, and post your questions. A member of the community or one of our student technology fellows will get back to you. Finally, to stay connected with us and be aware of our future programs, please follow us on social media. Links will be posted in the chat. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Dana Allen-Greil, Vice President of Marketing at the Monterey Bay Aquarium in Monterey, California. Dana has led web and social media efforts at the National Archives, National Gallery of Art, Ogilvy Public Relations, the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, and the Kaiser Family Foundation. Dana holds a BA in English from St. Mary's College of Maryland and an MA in Museum Studies from George Washington University. She has taught graduate museum studies courses for Johns Hopkins University, Georgetown University, George Washington University, and Tufts University, and served on the boards of the Museum Computer Network and the Mid-Atlantic Association of Museums. I've enjoyed getting to know Dana, and I'm thankful for the time she has devoted to this session. Now I'm pleased to turn the floor over to Dana to begin our session.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thank you for joining us. And let me just get my slides going here. So I'm Dana Allen-Greil. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a white woman in her early 40s with medium brown hair. I'm wearing blue light blocker glasses and contacts, which you can't see. And I'm coming to you from home. My home office here is actually my bedroom. Maybe some of you can relate. But I'm situated in the beautiful central coast of California, which is Ohlone, Costanoan, and Aslan land. And we acknowledge those indigenous people, past, present, and future, as part of our work at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So I'm presenting to you today. I'm going to be sharing data from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, but I am bringing my sort of 20 years of digital museum work and my teaching skills to you, hopefully. And I've provided my social media account here. It's at Dana Muses, as well as my personal email. So you can reach out to me if you have any questions. And I'll show that again at the end in case you miss it here. I'm happy to follow up with you. And one of the things I love about this community is how much we are open and sharing and help each other out. So I'm offering myself to you as a resource if that's helpful. Okay, so here's the quick outline of what we're going to cover today. So our topic is using analytics to understand audiences and optimize your efforts. I want to do a quick review of what I learned from the previous sessions in this module, because there's some great takeaways that help frame what I'm about to talk about. Then we'll dig into how to set goals and define indicators of success, and I'll give you a couple of examples from my work at the aquarium. Then we're going to do a pretty deep dive into Google Analytics. And what I'm going to try to emphasize there is to explore with a research question in mind to kind of prevent the overwhelm that can happen if you start digging in without kind of a goal. Then we'll talk a little bit about how to use dashboards for some of your key initiatives, and I'll share some other resources that I think are helpful to consult beyond Google Analytics as you think about optimizing your efforts. So that's our outline for today. So quick review. If you haven't had a chance to watch the other sessions in this module, maybe this will give you reason to do so. If you have, this is just a recap. So for me, I loved Emily Robertson's diagram of the process of using data. And she really emphasized the importance of setting goals, collecting data, analyzing that data, making decisions, and that this is a process that continues, right? This is a cycle. You're never done with analytics. So thank you for that takeaway, Emily. Arturo Garcia also shared this really beautiful, to me, metaphor about, what it feels like to go into a grocery store without an idea in mind of what you're going to cook versus going into a grocery store with a recipe in mind and being really targeted with what you're looking for. He also really shared the importance of setting your intention for success. So yes, the metrics are important, and we're going to talk a lot about that, but what is it that you're trying to achieve, and all the ways you can think about what success looks like for you in helping you set your goals. So again, thank you to Arturo for sharing that. Elena shared just an amazing session about all of the tools there are to help you collect data. So if you haven't watched that session, highly recommend that one. She's just such a resource for understanding all of the ways that you can understand what's working, what's not, who you're serving, who you're not. And I just wanted to share a list here of what she provided, which is how data can help you. So it can help you improve the user experience of your website or your app or whatever it is that you're working on. It can help you optimize the impact of the products you're making, the campaigns that you're running. It can also help you experiment. So you can try something, look at the metrics, try something else, see what changed, and iterate. Data can help you understand your audiences, and it can also help you increase revenue. So I've got a lot of those in mind for today's presentation. Again, thank you, Elena, for sharing all of the many tools you can use to help get at this data. And then Acacia Berry's session that really focused on social media, but what I loved is how she framed how to think about your digital strategy, how to build it, how to implement it, and then how to analyze it. And so this is just one of the many slides from her presentation I found useful, which is comparing kind of what's the user experience. And in this case, she's talking about Twitter or social media. And how do you map that up with goal setting? So things like someone on Twitter, you want them to stop scrolling. You want them to look at your image and read your caption. You want them to like or share or follow. How does that map up to your KPIs or key performance indicators? Are you trying to engage? Are you trying to reach a large amount of people? Both. And then how that maps up to the actual metrics that Twitter provides. So I found that to be a really great framework. And again, if you're super interested in how to measure social media, I think that's a great session to take a look at. So let's transition now. I'm mostly going to talk about web analytics because that hasn't been covered in super great depth so far in this module. I'll touch on some other things like email and SMS as we go. But let's talk first about that first step, setting goals and defining indicators of success. So this is an example of a subset, actually, of goals for the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So we just recently drafted our 2022 goals. This is for the whole marketing team, just for context. And what we've got on the left-hand side are 5 key goals for us as a marketing team. What you don't see here in our document was all of the strategies or tactics, things we're going to do to try to achieve that goal. And then next to that is the indicators of success. So the framework is, what are we trying to do? How are we going to try and do it? And then how will we know if we're being successful? So really today what we're digging into is this indicators of success, but that overall framework is really important for you to think about. So for us in marketing, we need to meet or exceed our attendance and earned revenue projections. That's a really important foundation for us. We need financial resources to do our work. So we're responsible for that. How will we know if we're being successful? The ones that are highlighted in yellow here are the ones that I'm going to be talking to you about today and showing you how to find that in tools like Google Analytics. But I wanted you to kind of see the overall context. We're not just looking at how much money did we make in the shop. We're also looking at our market research. Are we top of mind? Do people have intent to visit? So there's always kind of a holistic view of how we're achieving our goal, and web analytics is a piece of that for us. I'll move on to the second goal here, converting audiences to members and donors. So a lot of what we do in marketing is help support the goals of our membership and development team. And so we want to see when people land on our donate page that they're actually donating. That's a conversion. We want to see that when people go to buy a ticket that they're not abandoning the cart, which I'll show you more about that later. So again, I know this is a lot of information on the screen here, but what I wanted you to see is how what I'm talking about today is a piece of how you want to overall think about success and how you'll know if you're successful. So let's talk a little bit about how to create those indicators of success in a way that makes sense for you. So for me, using baselines and benchmarks is really important for this. And here's what I mean by that. So first, I want you to capture where you are now or at a specific point in time. And that's our baseline, right? So how many people are visiting our website right now? Need to know that if I'm going to set a target for how many people I want to visit in the future. Compare yourself to yourself. So you're your most important competitor. How are your metrics changing over time? You could just do this and that would be fine, just to understand how your efforts are making an impact over time compared to yourself. And the other dimension here is you could try to understand how are you performing compared to your peers or to the industry standard. And that's what I mean by a benchmark, right? So my baseline may be way off from the benchmark. My baseline may be really close to the benchmark. And it's up to you to decide where are you trying to get. But it's helpful to know, for example, an email click-through rate. I could say I want a 20% email click-through rate. Well, guess what? In the industry, a 4% click-through rate is amazing. So it's highly unlikely that you're going to achieve a 20% click-through rate, and therefore that's not an achievable goal for you. So making sure that your indicators of success are actually things that are accomplishable. This is where benchmarks can really help you. And then finally, you're setting a target. So that indicator of success, and you usually want a specific time period for that. So we will have this many people perform this action by the end of the year, for example. So let me give you a few. These are real life examples for us, and hopefully these help you think about what yours might look like. So in 2022, we want to enroll 12,000 people in our online courses. What's the context of this goal? So this is based off of our 2021 baseline. Our 2021 baseline was actually higher than this. So the second piece here is how much we can invest in promoting those online courses next year. Our budget for advertising for our online courses next year is going to be lower. So I've set an indicator of success that's lower than this year because I will have less resources to promote it. Here's another one, reach 20% conversion rate on donation pages. So that means the number of people who went to my donate page, 20% of them actually donate. Does that sound low to you? Well, there's a benchmark, and I'll show you. I apologize if my mouse is here. There's a benchmark provided by M&R, which I'll talk about in a moment, that helps me understand what's the conversion rate for similar nonprofits. 20% is the benchmark for other types of organizations that participate in this particular report, and ours is far lower than that. So this is a stretch goal for us. And so right now we're capturing what our baseline is so that we can understand where we need to improve over time. Okay, final one here, maintain a 4% click-through rate on Ocean Action emails. So this is a specific subscription that we introduced last year. And this is based off our 2021 performance. So we're seeing about a 4% click rate this year. So next year we want to maintain it. And we know based on benchmarks that that is a sort of an average benchmark for click-through rate on an advocacy email. And the reason I wanted to bring this one up for you is that indicators don't always have to be growth. Limitless growth is not realistic. And it's okay to say, I just want to maintain the success that we have. Or in my first example, I'm actually going for a lower goal because it matches my resources. So again, understanding your own baselines and where you are, your trends over time, and benchmarks can help you set goals that make sense for you. So hopefully that helps with constructing some of these, and we'll give you some thoughts for how to do this for yourself. Now let's look a little bit at that benchmarks report I was talking about. This is an amazing resource. So M&R is an organization that works with a lot of nonprofits on fundraising, but also their digital engagement strategies. And this resource is at mrbenchmarks.com. Anyone can access it and see what they've learned. Each year, they collect data from about 200 nonprofits about how they're fundraising, how they're advertising, how their texting, email messaging, social, and web is going. And they take all of that data, aggregate it, and they do have sort of segmentation by sector. So you could look just at the cultural nonprofits or the environmental nonprofits, animal welfare, a couple other types that participate in this. So anyone can go to this website and see that kind of aggregate data and aggregate. And it has great information like, okay, as a group, these 200 nonprofits saw their email list size grow by 3%. That's a good benchmark for you. If you've set, oh, we want to grow it by 100%, maybe that is unrealistic. So that's one way you can interact with this. They do a call every year for organizations to participate. So if you have a little more bandwidth, I think you need about 4 or 5 hours to pull the data. They'll give you a spreadsheet and kind of instructions on how to pull the data from your web analytics, from social media, etc. And you can give them your data, be part of this, and what you get out of participating in that way is a personalized report each year that shows your data compared to your segment. So again, 2 ways to participate with this. It's open to anyone for free, mrbenchmarks.com, or if you have bandwidth and ability to share your data, we found that really valuable because we get things like this. This shows all of the nonprofits who participated, what their main donation page conversion rate is. So that's how I learned that 20% is the benchmark for other nonprofits, and ours is 4%. So we are really off here. This makes me wonder what's going on our donate page, that we are converting so few people compared to the rest of the industry. I also got a report like this. On the left, you see homepage load times. On the right, donate page load times. And in yellow, you're seeing the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And what I'm seeing here, this is an instance where more is not better. I do not want my homepage to take twice as long to load as the industry standard. And same for my donate page. So that gives me a sense of what might even be going on here with conversions. If people are landing on the page, they're not waiting for it to load, or they're frustrated by the user experience, they're not going to stay and make a donation. So this is really useful for me to understand how we're performing, and it's also useful. I can bring this to my leadership at budget time and say, this is something we need to invest in, and here's how I know we're not performing as well as we need to be. Another really great source of information for benchmarking and just overall trends is Pew Research. They have a whole sort of segment of their research that is focused on how people in the United States are interacting with technology. They have data that goes back decades. And so this is really useful for understanding trends about platforms, how people use platforms, et cetera, and can help you with your strategy. Another resource I found really helpful is the Museum Social Media Managers Facebook group. So I know this says social media managers, and it is largely focused on social media, but a lot of folks who do social media for museums, as you may already be familiar with yourself, do a lot of other things. So they might also work on websites or email marketing or PR. So this group really kind of covers the gamut, and you'll see a lot of posts like this where people say like, hey, what's working for you? Or you could even say, this is my baseline. How does this compare to what you're doing? It's a really great community for understanding trends and also how to measure your performance. Another similar type of community that's just fantastic at supporting each other is MCN. And you can join the MCN email list. Where you see things like this. This is a question from someone asking, hey, how are you counting virtual program visitors? Who counts as an attendee? If a group is participating from a computer, are you counting that as one person, or are you counting the entire group of students? So again, this is just a great community for sharing challenges you have with measuring or understanding how you're performing alongside other organizations. So hopefully those are useful resources for you for getting started. Take a quick sip of water here. Okay. So now we're going to do a deep dive. Now we're going to do a deep dive into Google Analytics. And the key takeaway here is with a research question in mind. So I'm just going to say, I've got fair warning here. I'm going to run through a lot of slides really quickly. Not all of these are going to be relevant to you. What I want you to be listening for is this a question that I've had, or is this a question someone has asked me? And then those are slides that you want to pay the most attention to or come back to in terms of how to get that data. So just don't feel like you have to keep up with every single thing I'm about to show. I wanted to show a breadth of what you can do with Google Analytics. But first, let's talk about questions. So there are good questions and there are maybe better questions. And what I encourage you to think about is, what do you really want to know? So a good question is, what content is popular on our website? And that's really easy to answer with Google Analytics. I will show you how to do that. But a better question, or a question that takes you farther, is, okay, are we creating the kind of content people want? So once I know what's popular, then I can think about, well, is that where I'm spending my resources? Am I spending my time on the content that people are asking for? Or am I spending my time writing a bunch of stories on my website that people are not visiting? And then what do I do with that information? Another good question is, how do people find our website? A better question, or one that takes you farther, is, are the things I'm investing in, my ads, my emails, my social, is that what's driving people to our website? How do those two things match up? What do people do next on my website? That's a great question. Google Analytics will show you kind of what people do on your website. A better question is that what I want them to do? Am I meeting the goals that I've set for myself? Again, a good question. How many people donated on our website? 11,000. What do I do with that? A better question might be, why isn't my donation page converting people at the same rate as other nonprofits? Is 11,000 good? How does 11,000 compare to how many people went to that page? So again, just pushing you to think about a good question, and then what do I do with that? There might be more questions that follow. So let's start with that good question, what content is most popular? So in Google Analytics, once you're set up, you'll want to go to behavior, site content, all pages, and you'll get a list like this. So this is my top 10 most popular pages on my website. All the data I'm showing you is for calendar year 2021 up until yesterday or 2 days ago when I pulled some of these screenshots. And so this helps me understand where are people spending the most time in terms of the pages on my website that are most popular. Sorry, not the most time, but what pages are most popular. If you aren't familiar with this, that / on line 2, that's your homepage. And what I want to point out here that often surprises people is your homepage is not always your most visited page. We spend a lot of time thinking about our homepages, what's on them, how to use that, precious space. Everybody wants their link on the homepage. And I think it's useful to just remind people it's not always the most popular page. For us, you can see it's actually 10% of our page views. So that means if you look at all the pages on our site that people are spending time on, only 10% is the homepage. So that might give you some indication of how much effort to spend on your homepage versus other pages on the site. And again, remember to dig deeper. What do you really want to know? Okay, now I know what's most popular. Does this match my expectations? Did I think our ticket page would be the most visited page, not our live cam page? Did I hope to see more views on certain content? Did I just spend a whole bunch of time creating an online exhibition and I'm not seeing it here? Am I putting my efforts in the right places? So if I want to make sure I'm making the biggest impact with the limited resources I have for web content or web design, am I paying attention to the pages that are getting the most eyeballs? Okay, another good question that takes you a little farther is, has this page always been popular? So that live cam page, why is that number 1? Has that always been the case? I just didn't notice. So if you click on a specific page, it'll show you the trend over time. And so what I'm seeing here is actually that this page has gotten less and less eyeballs over time. And it looks like it went down in July and it hasn't come back up. I wonder why. Which brings me to, is this a pattern? So what I did was, you can compare time periods in Google Analytics. There's a compare to kind of drop down in the upper right. So I selected compare to previous year, and I wanted to see, is this maybe just every July, August, we see a dip in our web traffic? People are outside enjoying the sunshine, going to the beach. And that does seem to be true somewhat. So this orange line here is 2020. And I'll just say our live cams were incredibly popular during the pandemic because it gave people calm and joy and delight. Oftentimes people were home. They might have a second screen up and weren't out and about as much. So our live cams were really popular. You can see they waned in July of 2020. So that kind of pattern of dipping down in the summer looks like a seasonal pattern to me. But what I am noticing on the right side of this diagram is then it started to pop back up a little bit in 2020, and that hasn't happened for us this year. September, October, I'm still seeing some decline. So what's going on there? Okay, so that just gives you an example of the rabbit hole you can go down in Google Analytics and how questions can guide you to more questions. Let's back up a little bit and ask, how are people finding our website? So if you go in Google Analytics to acquisition and then overview, you'll get a pie chart like this. And what I will say about this, the biggest pie chart here, the biggest slice of the pie is 45% direct traffic. So I'll tell you about that in a moment. Let's talk about what the other ones are. Almost 40% is organic search. So organic search is different from paid search. If you're paying for advertising with Google to be kind of high up in that advertising section of their search results, that's paid search. Everything else is organic search. So that's fairly high for us as well. That red slice, a much smaller section, that's referral traffic. So those are people that are following a link on another website to our website. Then you've got paid search, email, social, and display ads. So let's talk a little bit about direct traffic. This is the one that's always puzzling. And that's because direct traffic is basically unknown traffic. That means Google can't tell where that person came from. And there are lots of reasons why. And I just want to say this for us has been growing over time. And there's lots of reasons for that. It can be really frustrating because it's like, these are the mystery folks. But here are some of the reasons that someone might come in as direct traffic. They could have typed in MontereyBayAquarium.org into their browser. They're not coming from somewhere. There's no referral. So that's direct. They could have bookmarked our website. We know that's true for our live camps. People come to them every day. They have it bookmarked. That doesn't count as coming from somewhere else. That's direct. Links from PDFs, links from a text message someone sent someone else, links from an app or dark social, so like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. And I'll talk a little bit later about how UTM codes can help you better understand that traffic. Bots, there can be a bunch of bots that are just running up traffic on your site and they're not being referred from somewhere else. And then also folks that are visiting on a private browser. If you use Chrome Incognito or you have a browser where you've turned off the ability for analytics to track you, you're going to show up as direct traffic. Another big reason for this is if you're using redirects or link shorteners without using a UTM code, those folks are, the refer is going to get broken. And they are going to show up as direct traffic. So pretty URLs are great, but you need to understand the pros and cons of using them. And we'll talk about how to mitigate that. So if you're not familiar with this already, there's a tool that Google offers. The URL here is a little hard. So if you just want to search for UTM Builder or Campaign URL Builder, you'll pull this up, which just helps you build out a URL with a UTM code in it. And I apologize, this is very small, but at the very bottom, you can see this is a URL with MontereyBayAquarium.org, UTM source equals, UTM medium equals. You've probably seen these if you've ever clicked a link in a newsletter. The New York Times has like these just bananas long URLs because they're putting a bunch of data elements in to help understand where traffic is coming from. So you can do this too if you're not already. This builder can help you. You can also have spreadsheets that do this for you, or there are other tools that do it, but this is a free tool from Google. When should you use URLs with a UTM code? I say pretty much always, except when you're linking from your own website. So if you're sending a link to your website from an ad, from an email, from a QR code, a social post, if you're doing a texting program, use UTM code so that you can understand who's clicking through. And you could say they're so long and they're so ugly. That is true. So you can create your URL with your UTM code and then shorten it and make it pretty. And when it resolves to that long URL, you'll then be able to track that traffic. Okay, which campaigns sent traffic to my website? So this is where UTM codes are super helpful. How to get to this in Google Analytics is acquisition, campaigns, all campaigns, and then you want to add the secondary dimension source medium. So there's a drop down for that. And here I'm just showing you my top 10 campaigns for the year. On the left, that's my campaign name, reopening. So remember it said UTM campaign equals, it would say reopening 2020. Source, on-site, medium, QR code. This shocked me. I could not believe that 80,000 people scanned a QR code that was outside of our entrance to go to our website. But here's the data, and it's sending more traffic than any of the other campaigns that I've done this year. So this is a really good kind of gut check for you. You can see Google cost per click is our second and third, and then some email campaigns and then social campaigns below that. So this is really where that value of UTM codes comes in, and this is gonna be a theme throughout the presentation. Okay, so what's the first thing people usually see on my website? This is another really good question. It's not always the same thing as your most popular pages. So again, how to get to that behavior, site content, landing pages. Here, what I'm seeing is, remember my homepage was not my most popular page, but it is my #1 landing page. And landing pages are important because it's the first thing people see. It's their first impression of you. So again, lots of different ways to kind of look at data, and this helps me understand, okay, only 10% of my overall page views were going to my homepage, but 40% for almost 30% of the people entering my site, they're entering through the homepage. So I need to think of that page as where people are coming to my organization for the first time. So let's talk a little bit about the relationship between landing pages and SEO. SEO means search engine optimization. And when you're looking at your landing pages, you want to be thinking about, where do I want people to be landing, and how can I make pages on my website work well for search? So here are some of the tips. Think about what keywords or phrases would someone search for in order to find this page. So once you have that in mind, you want to include those keywords or phrases in the URL, in the title, in the headings, and even in the image file names on that page. Those are all things that are going to help you rank highly for when somebody does that search. Another thing you can do is answer commonly asked questions. So for us, for example, we have super cute sea otters. We have tons of knowledge and research about sea otters and how important they are to the environment. We wanted our sea otter pages to rank better in search. So we looked at, what are people asking? What are people searching for? One of the top things is, what do sea otters eat? We had that information on our webpage, but it wasn't in the form of a question. So we literally put, what do sea otters eat? Sea otters eat, crabs and crustaceans and not fish. So literally putting the question and the answer on your page can help you rank for when people search using a question format. And finally, my last tip on this is just to be really clear about the purpose of that landing page and try to focus users on a specific call to action. So on our live cam pages, they are some of our most popular landing pages. We want people to watch, right? So that's the first thing you see, is how to watch that live cam. On a donate page, you want people to donate. So think about removing distractions where you can and really focusing on the specific thing you want people to do. Okay, since we're talking about search, let's also talk about Google Search Console Insights. So if you go to this URL, search.google.com/search console, and make sure that your site is registered there, your domain name is registered there, you can start to get insights into how your site is performing in Google search. And this screenshot on the right is showing me, 164,000 people click through from Google to my website in this month. That it's showing me. It's showing me what the most searched queries are that lead people to my site and how many people clicked. And it'll also tell me what rank I am. So you want to be in the top 5 results for the keywords that are really important to you. So this is a good tool, again, for just understanding what's happening on Google that then sends people to your site. Remember back to that pie chart, organic search is really important for us. So we want to make sure that our website is performing in a healthy way on Google. Another thing you might be curious about is, what do people search on my site? So the slide I just showed you is, what are people doing on Google? Well, what are they doing on my website? So my big caveat here is Google Analytics tells me only 2% of my visits include a site search. So that's a pretty small percentage. So this can be useful for understanding what people are looking for on your site, but it's helpful to know how many people are actually using search. This may be really different for museums with online collections and other types of search that are frequently used. So one of the things that I look at here, and how to get to this is behavior, site search, search terms. One of the things I look at here is, if someone's searching for something, they probably didn't find it right away by just scanning the navigation. So for me, live cams is sort of surprising because that is in our mega nav. Something like sharks is not as surprising to me because sharks is not in our navigation. So if you're seeing things in your search terms that you feel like people should be able to find without having to search, this is a good place to look for that. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break here. And again, I apologize, I'm speaking quickly. I wanted to get the lay of the land of what you can do in Google Analytics, and then we'll dive in more during Q&A. So I'm switching over here to what you can learn from the e-commerce section of Google Analytics. And so if you're selling anything on your website, tickets, memberships, online store, you want to enable the e-commerce module on Google Analytics, and it will get you information like this. And the happy faces are just to protect the privacy of our revenue data. So those are purposeful. And so what this is showing me here is just overall, how is my site performing? You're going to see this trend graph. This does not surprise me. In May is when we announced reopening. There's a huge spike there because all of a sudden people are wanting to come visit and want to spend money with us. The other things you can see here are the conversion rate. So how many people are going to your e-commerce pages are actually completing a transaction. So for us here, it's 4%. I can see the average order value. I can also see by product category. So I can see how much of my revenue was tickets versus membership versus a donation. This is one of the most powerful reports in e-commerce, I think, in Google Analytics. This shows you what happens to people in the purchase path. And so this can be called like cart abandonment or drop-off report, but basically what you're seeing from left to right, if you imagine like a slide with holes in it, okay, and water going down a slide, how much of the water is making it all the way to the end of the slide, and where are people falling out of that slide because they're falling through a hole? So here I've got my cart page, my health screening, which is basically saying, yes, I understand I need to wear a mask and my ticket is not refundable. I've got a screen that asks people to add a donation. Then I have sort of a payment summary and a confirmation page. So that's what's the path here. And I can see people are dropping off from the cart page. Only 74% of them are making it. So, you know, somewhere between 20 and 25% are not going from that cart page to that health screening page. What's going on there? Then between the health screening and add donation and payment, I'm not seeing a lot of drop off. That's good. That helps us know that like asking for a donation in the middle isn't making people say like, oh, forget it. I don't want to do this. I'm not going to visit. I'm not going to buy a ticket. And so overall, what this is showing me is where people drop off. And I'm also seeing that 73% of people who make it to the cart do complete their purchase. So this is really an important diagnostic for you, understanding how does your checkout process work and where you might need to make a design or other changes. And then you can kind of benchmark over time. Am I improving the number of people who make it all the way through? Okay, we've talked about UTM codes a lot and campaigns. Here's another example. Again, I'm sorry, this is very tiny, but for a specific goal, you can set up goals in Google Analytics. This is a goal of a ticket purchase. And so I can see here, again, Google is my number one driver, direct, and then that QR code, which just still shocks me. And then finally, our Google Ads, our email, etc. So this is helping me understand how my campaigns map to revenue. You can also do this with other types of calls to action. So here's a screenshot showing a form we had to contact your legislator about a piece of plastic pollution legislation. And so again, I can see little spikes. Those are when we sent out emails or did social media posts. And then I can understand from using UTM codes, okay, email sent the most people, and then Instagram, and then Facebook. And this can help me understand in the future where to invest my time. Another thing you can do in Google Analytics is understand what parts of your website are leading to those conversions. Here's one where we were tracking how people are signing up for email. Is it in the footer? Is it in the checkout? Okay, I'm going to quickly move into how to use dashboards. I want to get to our Q&A. So I'll run through this pretty quickly. The key takeaway here is Google Data Studio is a great free product you can use to build dashboards. You can choose what widgets you want to display, and you can use Google Analytics data, Google Ads data, and you can also feed it any data you want through a Google Sheet or a CSV and bring it all together. So this example is for our education team. They wanted to really understand without having to bug the marketing team over and over, how's it going with getting people to go to our online courses and register? So they can quickly see users per month, where they're coming from, what channels are sending people to enroll, what are the most popular pages within that section, what are the big refers? Like for us here, Google Classroom was a big refer. That was good to know. What states are people enrolling from? What kind of devices are people using? This is all Google Analytics data that you can get, but putting in a dashboard like this helps them really understand what is really relevant to them. And finally, this is something they've used over and over in reporting on their success. And you can see they've got a lot of coverage across the entire United States for our online courses. And that's something that was a big strategic goal for us. We've mostly focused on California and local for our education efforts in the past. So seeing this spread and all 50 states represented was something really important to them. Here's another example of a dashboard, again, using Google Data Studio. This is helping us track how our online store is going. We are new to selling things online. We launched that last year. And so one of the things I want to point out here, we've set a goal. And that's what this little semicircle arc is. We're not even halfway at our goal. The year's almost over. We know November and December are big shopping months, but it feels like we're not going to achieve our goal. But this really helps us see super quickly how close are we. The other one I want to point out is on the bottom right here, the site conversion rate. And so this is benchmarking us against the average US conversion rate. And what you can see, so that dotted gray line is showing between 2 and 3% conversion. For the most part, we are not meeting that. So that's a good benchmark for us, and it shows us where we need to learn and do better. Again, you can see where people are shopping from. You can tie that to age demographics and other types of demographics, location, etc., using Google Analytics data. So in this last few minutes, I'm just going to share a couple other ways that you might want to round out what you're learning from Google Analytics, and then we'll go into Q&A. So Google page speed. This is super important, and it's something that you can see here. I'm airing all my dirty laundry here. Our website does not load fast. We saw that in that benchmark report from M&R. Here's another way to measure that directly. And Google is the one that decides how you rank on Google. So go right to the source and understand how fast is your page loading. What Google is doing now is, even if your page is super relevant, if it loads slowly, especially on mobile devices, they're starting to push it down farther in the results. So this is a really important metric to pay attention to. And what you'll get is a lot of, in addition to just a score, you want to be in that 50 to 90 or even better in that 90 to 100. And when you're not, it will tell you kind of what's wrong and what to do. So I can take this information to my web developers and say, we need to work on X, Y, and Z, and then I will expect my page speed to improve. Elena talked about this in her presentation, so I'll just skip quickly through to say, Google Analytics shows you data in aggregate, right? If you really want to understand what is an individual user's experience like, recordings are super important. We use Lucky Orange. You could also use Hotjar, Crazy Egg. You could do it just for a period of time, look just at certain parts of your website, but it really helps you see. In this case, it's a video of someone going from our live cam page to our donate page, and it takes them 10 minutes to make a donation. And this helps me understand why. And it has to do with passwords. Oops, okay. Another source of data that I think a lot of organizations don't pay enough attention to is comments as data. So what are people saying on social? What are they telling you in your contact us emails? What are they commenting on your surveys? If you're doing SMS, how are they replying? You could do something as simple as a word cloud here. This shows last month at the top is when we announced that we would be requiring vaccines or a negative COVID test. There's a lot of talk about not the ocean. And then in that second part, you see, kelp forest, bay, sea otters. COVID's still there, but it's a little smaller. And so this just helps me understand what's happening and what people are saying. And it help me also understand sentiment, how people are feeling. I'm seeing a lot of emojis in that top area. Finally, a really wonderful resource for understanding other big trends is Colleen Dillenschneider's website, Know Your Own Bone. Here's 2 screenshots showing kind of what's going on with median income of visitors. Another one showing the increased importance of digital engagement for museums across the board. So this helps you understand for cultural organizations what's happening. We work with Impacts, the organization Colleen works for, on our own market research, but before I worked here, I used her website all the time to kind of understand what is market research telling us about what's happening in the field. So recap, set your goals, define your indicators of success, try to use questions when you're navigating Google Analytics because it can be really overwhelming. If you can, create dashboards for some of your key initiatives that just help you get a snapshot quickly of how it's performing, and think about other sources of data as you go. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana. That was great. I always say when I'm watching these that I am the target audience for this technology training, because my organization has two staff, and neither one of us really come from a technology background, but we have a website and we have all of the things that you've just talked about. I also say I can't walk and chew gum. So as you were talking, like my inclination was to want to immediately go to start looking at these analytics. But that's what I hope these sessions are really doing to inspire people watching, is that the tools are there. And so this, one of the first questions that came in, I really identify with this one for you. First of all, it's very complimentary. Thank you for this incredible presentation and sharing so much of it. I wish I could learn how to wield Google Analytics and dashboard like you do. But this person would like to know, do you have any recommendations on next steps, courses or reading, or how do we put this into practice?
Yeah, I mean, you'll have access to this slide deck right in this presentation. You could go back through and navigate yourself. If you're already set up in Google Analytics, hopefully you are. Google also offers a lot of really great tutorials themselves. So there's a lot of self-paced videos and learning out there. There's also, I might have to follow up to get you the link to this, but there is a group of folks who work in government. So when I was at the National Archives and the Smithsonian and the National Gallery of Art, I was a government employee. So there's a lot of government employees creating resources to help each other understand, like, what's most important. I only have an hour a week. Like, what should I spend an hour on with Google Analytics? So I can get you the links to that information and maybe share that in the forum. But I would say your first next step is, what is that key question? Either you get asked all the time, you don't know how to answer it, or it's just been bugging you. Like, am I doing the right thing in this area? Start with that and kind of see, measure that over time and start small and build up. Eventually you'll get to the point where you know what you want in a dashboard. I wouldn't start with a dashboard until you know what are the questions I'm trying to answer. So hopefully that helps. Again, I think benchmarking yourself is a good place to start as well. Like, don't just make up a goal. Make sure that you have a sense of what's already happening out there and try to see, do I want to be the best? Do I want to be good? Do I just want to be better than I already am? Or do I want to maintain? And that's fine.
Well, that's really good advice. And it was interesting. We just had, our annual conference, and in the evaluation, we asked people, where did you find the most information about the conference? And the website was the number one response. And I just didn't think that would be at the top, because we, I don't know, I've been more focused on social media and email communication.
Sure.
So now that I know that, it then drives me back to the website to begin digging deeper into how people are actually using it. So I definitely see it as a step process for those of us who are inching our way into using it.
Yeah, I think that's something that came up in the very first presentation too, right? She said, trust your gut, but also the data may tell you things that your gut is surprised by. Like I said, that QR code being one of the main drivers of traffic to our ticket page. I thought, well, wait, what? I didn't realize 90,000 people showed up without tickets this summer. And this is something new for the aquarium. You used to be able to just walk up and buy a ticket. Right now with COVID, we had timed entry and you had to buy a ticket in advance. But that shows me that in the other things I'm doing, am not doing a good enough job communicating that you needed to buy a ticket before you came.
Well, and that's, I don't know, there's something exciting about finding a reveal like that within the data. So that I was looking at some of the questions that came in. This one, what can our site analytics specifically tell us about our current audiences and audiences we want to target? Sure. And then the follow-up is, in your experience, what are some ways that organizations have addressed these needs?
Okay. So I think the most important thing to understand about Google Analytics is it tells you what you are currently doing. It does not tell you anything about the opportunity, right? So it can tell you things like, and this is based on sampling, but it can tell you things like, what are the age demographics? What are the locations? What devices are people visiting from? It even has some sort of psychographic or lifestyle type of cohorts they put people into. So you could understand I'm reaching people who are really into gaming, or I'm reaching people who are really into healthy eating, right? There's categories like that. But again, that doesn't tell you who you could be reaching. And that's where market research is really important, and understanding what else is happening. And that's why I tried to include some of those other resources to help you understand. Colleen Dillon Schneider's blog is a great way to understand, like, okay, I'm not reaching young people. Are other museums reaching young people? and if they are, then start talking to your colleagues. What are you doing to reach young people? Right. So I think it gives you an indicator of what's happening, but it doesn't tell you what's possible.
Yeah, I remember in the early days of the pandemic how we were all just, each time an email would come out from Colleen Dillon Schneider about how people are feeling about returning to museums, it was just we all glommed onto it to see what was going on. So I totally see that as a resource completely.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, we're running out of time here, but we've got, this one was more, and you touched some on this, a more specific question about ticket sales, but which analytics are best to watch when seeking to improve or increase program and ticket sales on an informational page of a website? And then any tips for someone wishing to optimize these pages to do better?
Yeah, so a couple things. That conversion rate is super important, because just looking at the raw number of people who purchased doesn't help you understand, is that informational page helping convert people to that? And so if you've got a ton of interest on a page, lots of eyeballs and not a lot of conversions, that could tell you either that page needs to be clearer, more compelling, maybe your product needs to be clearer, more relevant to your audience. So I'd say that conversion rate is super important. And then that kind of drop off, like funnel page, I think is so useful. If you've got a multi-step checkout process, there could be something happening there that's standing in the way of people completing a purchase, and you want to fix that right away. And again, if you're seeing lots of people entering the funnel and not exiting the funnel, what's going on there? Why are people interested and then not finishing their purchase? So those would be the two things I would recommend for optimizing.
It's like people like me who are multitasking, and they're trying to like buy something online and do an email and do and there's not much you can do about that. But I really, that's such a useful insight to see where in the, then I have to think about myself, where in the process do I usually drop off?
And depending on how sophisticated your tools are, I'm sure if that's the kind of shopper you are, for me, like I'll put a t-shirt in my, Gap cart, and then I forget about it. And then Gap sends me an email the next day and says,
oh,
did you
smart.
buy this t-shirt? So that there's that sort of abandoned cart technology. That can be really helpful. It can also feel icky. So it sort of depends on your brand and what you're comfortable with, but that could be a tool to look into. If you're seeing a lot of people put things in the cart and then not finish, maybe something like an abandoned cart email could be helpful for you.
Or start to donate and not finish. Hey, did you want to finish that donation?
We'd really love it.
Okay, well, we are at time, so I just would really like to thank you for all that you've conveyed today, and I'm excited to be able to go back and rewatch lots of just wonderful information, and thank you to all of our audience who have been here attending the session about using our analytics to understand audiences, and thank you, Dana, for walking us through it. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry I talked so fast. There's a lot I wanted to share. Again,
you're great.
My username is @DanaMuses if you want to catch me on Twitter. And my email is dana@allen-greil@gmail.com if you want to email me.
Awesome. Thank you. And now just a few final reminders for those still with us. If you enjoyed this program, please do us a favor and share with your network. We really appreciate participation and hope to see you in the chat for our future programs. After this module is complete, which is pretty now, all 4 videos will be available on our website, as well as a complete toolkit of the resources provided by our presenters. So check often on museum-hub.org for more information on that. Also, please remember to visit the forum on the website and ask additional questions. Follow us on our social media pages. That's where we push out a lot of the future program information. And then please complete that post-event satisfaction survey. And then finally, please join us in December is the next time we'll see you. Thursday, December 2nd will be the introductory session of Module 9. Can't believe we're at Module 9, which is going to focus on social media. So all of December, we'll be talking about different aspects of social media and technology and where museums fit in. So thank you all for attending today's session. As always, I've enjoyed being your host, and I hope that you all have a fabulous day. Bye.